Good evening, and welcome to the 2020 Virtual Evening with Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge. My name is Chris Rothy, and I am the chairman of the board of directors. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our 5th annual gala. Normally, we would be gathered on campus for a convivial celebration, including conversation among our Distinguished Citizen Award recipients and our many friends and supporters, while bidding on the silent auction and enjoying a great meal from our friends at Valley Forge Catering. COVID-19, as in so many other cases, has made that impossible. But our team has worked diligently to pivot to a virtual gala. Thank you for continuing to support Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge by joining us tonight. Fear not, you can still bid on the silent auction. The entire auction is online and registration is easy. Just visit ffvf2020.givesmart.com. A link should be in the Zoom chat to take you there directly. Registration is easy, and you can bid on your phone while you enjoy tonight's program. As you probably know, the annual gala is our single largest fundraiser in support of our education programs. Every bid won in the auction supports programs in civic responsibility for teachers and students from around the country. So please, keep bidding. Tonight would not be possible without our many sponsors, including our diamond presenting sponsor, the H.D. Smith Foundation, whose generosity from their headquarters in Springfield, Illinois, is well known. H.D. Smith have been longtime supporters of our Service Learning in Public Policy program for high school students for many years. Thank you to Chris Smith and the H.D. Smith Foundation for your ongoing support. Thank you also to our platinum sponsors, our Los Angeles chapter of Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge, the Connolly Foundation, as well as Rick and Carrie Griffith and the Faith Foundation. Our gold sponsors include the Aziz Foundation, Jordan and Julie Clements, and the Clements Family Foundation. Previous Distinguished Citizen Award recipient Joan Carter and John Aglialoro, and the Foundation for Individual Liberty, Bruce Brown and the HBE Foundation, Sandy and Gail Lipstein and the Lipstein Family Foundation, and Richard and Elaine Valiga. The generosity of these individuals and foundations means Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge will continue to offer to inspire the next generation of young citizens and their teachers through educational programs focused on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, American history, the Medal of Honor, character development that not only inform but transform the lives of participants. Since our beginning in 1949, Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge has recognized citizens from around the country. We do this because of their example of civic responsibility and public service, commitment to the Constitution, and contribution to freedom. Past Distinguished Citizen Award recipients have included actors John Wayne and Bob Hope, Chief Justice William Rehnquist, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, Drs. John and Josephine Templeton, Mr. Alan Miller, and many, many more. This year, we are honored to recognize Dr. Larry Arnn, 12th President of Hillsdale College, Dr. Roger Smith, Christopher H. Brown, Distinguished Professor of Political Science, and the Philly Pops, under the direction of President and CEO, Mr. Frank Giordano. During tonight's virtual gala, as part of the presentation of the 2020 Distinguished Citizen Awards, our President David Harmer speaks with Larry Arnn, as well as Frank Giordano and POPs board member Carol Eggert. And you will hear from Roger Smith as well. We will also share some reflections from 2 of our own board members on what Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge means to them, and much more. And of course, throughout the evening, you can check out the many great items in the auction and bid at any time. The Philly Pops, founded in 1979, is the largest standalone Pops orchestra in the United States. And their concerts delight audiences with the inspired performance of American popular music. Tonight, they will help us open the evening's performance with the national anthem, which will be followed by the presentation of our first Distinguished Citizen Award.
As a sponsor of the Philly Pops Salute Series, we remember that the freedoms we enjoy are safeguarded by our military and our first responders. Music and celebration helps us come together as a community, even when separated from loved ones, like many service members are this week. These moments have the power to evoke the deepest of connections with those we hold close to our hearts. All of us at Comcast, NBC 10, and Telemundo 62 are excited to help you welcome the festival virtually this year into your homes. Serving our country is a big part of who I am, and also who Comcast NBC Universal is. This week, we celebrate what our heroes have done for our country.
Ladies and gentlemen, Friends of Freedom Foundation, welcome to tonight's gala. It is a pleasure tonight to introduce you to our two guests, Carol Eggert, Brigadier General, retired United States Army, and now Senior Vice President for Military and Veterans Affairs of Comcast NBC Universal. Carol is joined by Frank Giordano, who among his many titles is President and Chief Executive Officer of the Philly Pops. Carol and Frank, thank you for joining us. Carol, I'd like to start by asking you, if you don't mind, what's your first memory of service to the community?
Probably Girl Scouts and the 4-H.
Really, I didn't become involved with what I could consider community service till I got on the board of Goodwill Industries.
Tell me what you've done more recently in terms of public service.
Most recently, I am the executive director of the United States Semi-Quincentennial Commission, otherwise known as America 250, and it's the 250th anniversary of America in 2026. Sounds a long way off, 6 years, but we're probably a little behind the 8 ball.
I'm dazzled by the work the Semi-Quincentennial Commission has taken on. That's no small challenge. Frank, I've got a question for you. Yesterday we commemorated the 19th anniversary of 9/11. And in the wake of those terrorist attacks, there was such a spirit of national unity and purpose. How do we rekindle that spirit?
First responders, were unbelievable. What a bright star in our country that all these people rushed in. In fact, literally came from all over the country, but the New York Fire Department and New York Police, they don't normally think of that type of duty where so many lost their lives at one time. How we rekindle that's difficult. That's one of the things that we're wrestling with the America 250. How can we do that? We want a celebration for all Americans and each and every American. We think doing community programs that we're now developing would help with that.
I've got to say, I think your work both through the Pops and the Semi-Quincentennial Commission is a great mechanism of bringing people together. Carol, I think you know, the mission of Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge is to create and build an understanding of the spirit and philosophy of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. As we seek to advance America's founding ideals, I think the Salute series is really a partner in that work. Tell me from your perspective how the Salute series helps bring people together in support of the ideals of the American founding.
Well, I'll start with the July 3rd concert. That's in front of Independence Hall, and then behind us is the Constitution Center. Can there be anything more patriotic than listening to incredible music, incredible musicians, and to remind you of the gifts we have here in America?
Amen to that. Frank, as the official partner of the City of Philadelphia in civic celebration, the Pops has done some really innovative things. Tell me about some of the innovations you've brought to your concert series.
The Pops have brought new talent that the community can engage with. We're playing the music of popular music of today, not popular music of 40 or 50 or even 70 years ago. Being involved in the community, we want to be the fabric of what brings this community together. As the mayor of Philadelphia calls us, we are Philly's orchestra.
Before we conclude, I'd like to ask each of our guests if you've got any concluding thoughts or just a message you'd like to leave with the Freedom's Foundation supporters joining us for tonight's gala. Carol?
Well, you had asked the question of how do we bring back that spirit. I would say let's notice where it is. Think of those Guard and Reserve members and first responders responding to the fires in California, to the hurricanes down in Louisiana. It is here with us. We just need to recognize it, bring it up, and be part of it.
Oh, that's beautifully said. Frank, how about you?
As I'm sitting here thinking about the Pops receiving the award from the Freedom's Foundation, what is there in common? Well, the Freedom's Foundation has fantastic education programs into civics, and the Pops has a program called Pops in Schools for the Philadelphia public school system. Before the pandemic, we were in person 3,000 students. And one of the innovations, you talked about innovation earlier, one of the innovations that we have is virtual programming, and now we're reaching 18,000 students. So we may not have the in-person touch, but 18,000, sixfold.
Reaching 18,000 students through Pops in Schools.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us virtually for tonight's gala. Please join me in giving a warm round of virtual applause to our guests, Carol Eggert of Comcast NBC Universal, and Frank Giordano, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Philly Pops. Thank you.
What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it. All I'm asking is all of the respect when you get home. Hey, baby, when you get home. Ain't gonna do you wrong while you're gone. Ain't gonna do you wrong, 'cause I don't wanna. All I'm asking is for a little respect when you get home, baby, yeah, when you get home. Hey, I'm about to give you all my money. All I'm asking in return, honey, give me my promise when you get home, baby, whip it on me, yeah, woo! All right, Philadelphia, you know I know you. I want you to get up on your feet and shake what your mama gave you. Come on, don't be shy now. Your kisses, sweeter than honey. Guess what? So is my money. All I want you to do for me is give me some respect when you get home, baby. Whip it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take care of TCB. Ah, a little respect. Whoa, a little respect now. Running out of food. You ain't lying, baby. Running out of food. I ain't lying. Yeah, oh, y'all look good. Take care of TCB. Oh, little respect. Whoa, a little respect now. Running out, who ain't lying, babe? Running out of food. I ain't lying. Hey, respect. Respect. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're joined again by Frank Giordano, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Philly Pops. Frank, thank you for being here. Since 1949, Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge has recognized outstanding organizations that make significant contributions to society through the transmission of American values. Our past honorees have included the USO, the Boys and Girls Clubs, American Veterans or AMVETS, Boy Scouts of America, the Levy Foundation, and the Connolly Foundation. For the past 8 years, under the leadership of President and CEO Frank Giordano, the Philly Pops has grown by leaps and bounds, reaching 250,000 patrons annually in concerts and special programs throughout Philadelphia and beyond. In addition to the subscription series at the Kimmel Center, including popular music from Broadway, jazz, Motown, movies, and more, the Pops brings the entire city of Philadelphia together for its annual Christmas Spectacular that includes regular collaboration with the Philadelphia Boys Choir, the Pops Festival Chorus, and guest artists like Broadway's Mandy Gonzalez. The introduction of the Salute series has allowed thousands of Philadelphians and visitors to experience the Philly Pops for free with performances on Memorial Day, July 3rd on Independence Mall, the July 4th Wah Wah Welcome America concert, a series of ensemble performances on Veterans Day, and opening night of the Pops Christmas concert series in December. These transformative moments of celebration recognize the service and sacrifice of those dedicated to a collective identity of American values and tradition, helping us all find common ground through music. Now, in addition to traditional orchestral concerts and innovative programming like the All-City Jazz Festival during Jazz Appreciation Month in April, the Philly Pops has undertaken music education across Philadelphia and southern New Jersey. Embedded into 15 schools across Philadelphia and Camden, more than 3,000 students receive coaching and mentoring in music. And with schools closed due to COVID-19, the Pops innovated once again to provide Pops in School at Home to 18,000 students and counting, with virtual content provided each week on YouTube. On behalf of the Board of Directors of Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge, it is now my pleasure to bestow upon Frank Giordano and the Philly Pops our highest honor, the 2020 Distinguished Citizen Award, in recognition of this great institution as Philadelphia's partner in civic celebration, a patriotic music innovator, and a music education sustainer. We are delighted to recognize the Philly Pops and its ongoing contributions to the civic life of the city of brotherly love through music.
It is my pleasure, really my honor, to receive this award on behalf of the Philly Pops, the staff, and the wonderful musicians. Thank you very much.
Please join me in congratulating the Philly Pops and Frank Giordano for their many musical contributions to Philadelphia, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the entire country. Next, I want to recognize our silver sponsors for tonight's event. PECO, an Exelon company, is Pennsylvania's largest electric and gas utility. RAM HVAC Mechanical Contractor is a family-owned business here in southeastern Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for your continued support of Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge. I've been asked by our Executive Vice President to ask people to stop bidding up the Adirondack chairs from Williamson College of the Trades. He would like to take those for his back patio. I suggest you make him pay dearly for them. There are also some incredible memorabilia available, including a signed framed Tom Brady Patriots jersey. We recognize that for some, like members of our Bay State chapter, this might be a prized possession to remember those 6 Super Bowl wins. Others may just want to take it out of circulation. There are only 50 in the world. And use it for target practice. Either way, Freedom's Foundation of Valley Forge benefits from your winning bid. While you're checking on your current bids, check out this video on the mission and programs of the Foundation to learn about who we are, what we do, and why it is so virtually important, and vitally too. Toward the end of the video, you will see and hear from a rather well-known supporter of ours.
At Freedom's Foundation, we want all Americans to understand the spirit and philosophy of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. These remarkable documents forever changed people's expectations of leadership and government.
If it hadn't been for those individuals who led us in the early stages of forming our country, they were very brave people, and they had no pattern to follow. They had to make their own way. And of course, they had a tremendous purpose, and that was freedom.
And Freedom's Foundation is here to tell that story.
The mission of Freedom's Foundation, it was established to do just that, not simply to offer programs for youth, but to revive in the country a strong awareness of what it means to sustain appreciation for our heritage.
Thousands of students and teachers come to our 75-acre campus in Valley Forge to study history, government, and their duties as citizens. They discuss their rights and their responsibilities. They leave knowing that the spirit and philosophy of America are more than just words on 200-year-old documents. They are a sacred promise. That spirit and philosophy come alive each time we vote, volunteer, or solve problems together.
But if we don't teach our youth what it took to preserve us, to maintain our freedom and all of the rights and privileges that we have, how are they going to know? And Valley Forge is one of those central places, like Pennsylvania, but it's one of those central places where children, perhaps for the very first time, will come to some realization that I have what I have because of the sacrifice of others.
Dwight D. Eisenhower, a Freedom's Foundation founder, said, "We all have a great mission to teach our children, our neighbors, and even ourselves what a wonderful thing patriotic citizenship really is, and to do it with our hearts, our heads, and our pocketbooks." Since 1949, Freedom's Foundation has fulfilled this great mission in 3 important ways. First, we educate. Thousands of students and teachers come to Valley Forge from across the country each year for fun and exciting programs. Next, we honor acts of civic virtue. We recognize Americans from across the country who strive every day to make their communities better. And in the hallowed ground of our 42-acre Medal of Honor Grove, we salute the sacrifice and heroism of the more than 3,500 members of our armed forces who received the nation's highest award for valor. Finally, we challenge all to serve a cause greater than themselves, inspired by the wisdom of founders who came together for the greater good with respect, generosity, and thoughtfulness.
We need responsible citizenship. That means we need Freedom's Foundation. We have Freedom's Foundation. I am proud it is here. I am glad it is here. I am grateful that it has involved me in its programs, but above all, as a citizen, I am grateful for the work that it does for our community and for our nation.
Over the years, I've watched Freedom's Foundation defend and promote freedom. I've seen the organization grow, and I've valued my association with it. Be open to its message. Support the Foundation's work. Let its magnificent flag serve as a banner of hope to all who love freedom throughout the world.
Our second recipient of the Distinguished Citizen Award this evening is Dr. Roger Smith of the University of Pennsylvania. A former member of the Freedoms Foundation at Valley Forge Board of Directors, we are honored to recognize this consummate constitutional scholar, academic leader, and educational philanthropist. Roger Smith has spent his career engaged with difficult questions, centering his research on constitutional law, American political thought, and modern legal and political theory, with special interests in questions of citizenship, race, ethnicity, and gender. His book, Civil Ideals: Conflicting Visions of Citizenship in U.S. History, was a finalist for the 1998 Pulitzer Prize in History. At the heart of his scholarship is nuance and integrity, and ultimately heart. Smith recognizes that constitutional scholarship is not a niche subject of academic value alone, but necessary for the functioning of our democratic republic. And thus his support of civic education has been a central part of his teaching as well as his academic leadership. As the founding director of the Penn Program on Democracy, Citizenship, and Constitutionalism in 2006, his decade of leadership laid the foundation for the recently renamed Andrea Mitchell Center for the Study of Democracy. That allows Penn students to learn about and appreciate and experience democracy through wide-ranging programs from multiple lecture series, postdoctoral, graduate, and undergraduate research fellowships, seminars, and conferences, a model organization of American states, and more. Elected as the American Academy of Arts and Sciences Fellow in 2004, a Fellow of the American Academy of Political and Social Science in 2011, and a member of the American Philosophical Society in 2016, Professor Smith served as president of the American Political Science Association from 2018 through 2019. Much of his tenure was devoted to the question of how best to expand political science's relevance and reach in an area of growing specialization and a widening gap between research and teaching-focused institutions, as well as increasing ideological polarization, mistrust of civic institutions, and public skepticism of science and expertise. The APSA Task Force on New Partnerships, founded by President Smith, wanted to strengthen the ties between political scientists and enhance the contributions of political science to civic life. This was not just theoretical. One such new partnership created the Task Force Project on Congressional Reform, which worked with the Congressional Select Committee, a nonpartisan effort to reform rules and procedures, leadership development, staff recruitment, and more. All of this was not just conceived by Dr. Smith, but it was funded by him as well. Through their family Ivywood Foundation, Rogers and his wife Mary Summers have also funded the Philadelphia Teachers Institute, which provides professional development for Philadelphia teachers. Please join me in recognizing Roger Smith, the teenaged Politico, who had served all 3 branches of Illinois state government by age 16 for his lifetime of achievement.
Thank you, Chris, for those generous words. And for my part, I want to commend the Freedoms Foundation for doing me this honor in the company of Hillsdale President Larry Arnn and the Philly Pops. If you read our writings, you'll know that Larry Arnn and I have differences about politics, but we share a dedication to the highest principles of the Constitution, a love of this country, and a concern for all its citizens. So I'm honored to be in his company. And as for the Philly Pops, well, politics may prepare the architecture of our national house, but the people who live in it engage in many different pursuits, and none of them are higher or enrich human life more than the musical arts. I think the fact that we allow for many diverse pursuits of happiness is one of the greatest benefits of our freedom. And I'm conscious of the value of this diversity because of the diverse pursuits in my own family. I'm a descendant of creative entrepreneurs and also caring teachers. One member of my family was a Medal of Honor recipient in World War I. Another was a conscientious objector in World War II. Today, my extended family includes even more differences. We are white, we are black, we are Latinx, we are Native American, and as soon as my daughter gets married next summer, we'll be Asian American as well. We have people with what are conventionally considered disabilities and people without, those who are gay, those who are straight. We follow many different religions and some no religion at all. We have Republicans and we have Democrats. And we have people that don't fit any of those boxes, some of them because they don't care much about politics at all. So we do have our differences, but we usually find that we have many values that we share. We have a deep concern and care for each other, and we can pursue dreams in common as well as those that are distinct. As this array of awards tonight indicates, at its best, the Freedoms Foundation helps make that possible for our national house as well. I've seen it bring together people from different backgrounds to learn about our common heritage, to clarify our differences, and to discover common ground as we find ways to confront the challenges that we as a people face today. We know those challenges are very severe, but for that very reason, tonight I'm not looking back, I'm looking forward. Mary and I are committed to continuing to work with the Freedoms Foundation in helping bring people together to discover the ways that we can work together in confronting the challenges that we face in a spirit that emphasizes the best in all that we share. And so I'm very pleased to accept this award in that spirit and in the confidence that if the Freedoms Foundation can do that, if America can do that, there are many things that are in our past we can celebrate as great, but the best is yet to come.
Thank you, Professor Smith. I think I can add one more thing to the stupid things I did while I was in college at Penn, and that is not taking a class from Professor Smith while I was there. Those were incredible remarks. Let's once again offer our congratulations to Rogers. Thank you. Before we move on, I'd like to thank some more of our sponsors, including wide sponsors AEM Architects, Clinton Larson Allen, Flying Transportation, Bob Cavalier of Lucas and Cavalier Attorneys at Law, Mueller Incorporated, Importers of Fine Beers, Henry A. Davidson Custom Suits, and Williamson College of the Trades. You can check out the last two sponsors on the auction site at ffvf2020.givesmart.com. You can also make donations to support Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge using the GiveSmart platform. Just text FFVF 2020 to 76278. That's 76278 to register from your phone. Next is Sandy Cook, one of my fellow board members, who will share a little about what Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge means to her.
Hello. My name is Sandy Cook, and I'm a member of the board of the Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge. I was introduced to Freedom's Foundation by a very good friend several years ago who went on to form the Sacramento chapter, and within that chapter, I served with her on that board as well. We raised money in order to send youth from our area to the program back at Valley Forge. Those youth were required to write an essay telling why they wanted to go and meet some very basic guidelines. What I noticed was many of these youth were first and second generation Americans. It was their parents who felt it would be an awesome experience for them, and they agreed. So I saw them also when they returned from the program at Valley Forge, and now they were new young patriots. My husband and I decided this was what we wanted for our grandchildren, and so we have now sponsored over 6 of our grandchildren as well as one special family friend. They too returned as changed people, now interested in our country's government, our country's history, and what they can do to be a part of it. What a great use of our resources. There are times in life when we realize we really need to get off the sidelines and put our time, our energy, and our money where our heart is. I'm a patriot and I love our country, but I'm concerned with what is going on today. History is being distorted, it's being rewritten, and as such, it's being taught that way to our children. We cannot let this happen. Someone has to tell the truth and make it come alive for our children. And this is what the Freedom's Foundation excels in doing back at Valley Forge. In my small way, and my husband's too, we are choosing to support the American freedoms that we have inherited. I support the Freedom's Foundation by making donations. We send our grandchildren to its programs, and I work for it as a member of the board. We both do this for our country and for the next generation, and we pray that God will bless us all and our country.
Thank you, Sandy. The work of Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge, inspiring young patriots to take up their civil responsibilities in defense of freedom for all, would be impossible without the support of people like Sandy and her husband, Jim. Everyone watching tonight can help too. Join or start a chapter. A link in the Zoom chat will take you to a map of our chapters. Sponsor a student or teacher to come to Valley Forge. Or make a donation right now on GiveSmart by texting FFVF 2020 to 76278. And of course, bid in the auction. There's a beautiful beachfront vacation house in the Dominican Republic that sleeps 8, waiting for you and your friends and family if you want to take them too. Win it now and pick your date when you're ready to travel again. Now it is our distinct pleasure to present our third and final 2020 Distinguished Citizen Award to Dr. Larry Arnn, 12th President of Hillsdale College. Last week, our president, David Harmer, traveled to Michigan to present the award, and he and Dr. Arnn sat down to discuss the Constitution, the college, and more.
The Distinguished Citizen Awards recognize those who have accomplished extraordinary things over a sustained time and inspired their fellow citizens by their devotion to the ideals of the American founding and to the public service that exemplifies them. This year, it is our pleasure to add to a long line of previous recipients of such awards, including Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Lady Margaret Thatcher, the teacher Jaime Escalante, civil rights leaders like Marian Wright Edelman, giants of jurisprudence such as Chief Justice William Rehnquist. In considering who would be not merely a suitable or worthy, but exemplary heir to this tradition, Freedom's Foundation was inspired by the accomplishments of Dr. Larry Arnn as an educational leader, as a historian, as a constitutional scholar. As an educational leader, Dr. Arnn founded and led for many years the Claremont Institute, devoted to the study of statesmanship and the ideals of the American founding. For 20 years, he has served as president of Hillsdale College and taken Hillsdale's influence national through its online courses and outreach. His book, Liberty and Learning, adds to his credentials as an educational leader. As a historian, we've been so impressed with Dr. Arnn's service, first researching with Sir Martin Gilbert, and then editing, and now serving as custodian of that extraordinary historical record, being compiled into not only the biography of Sir Winston Churchill, but the collection of his written works. We are impressed by his book, Churchill's Trial, discussing Churchill's thoughts on war and empire and peace, and threats to freedom not only from without, but from within. As a constitutional scholar, Dr. Arnn has, through his speeches and writings, his publications, his book, The Founder's Key, inspired many in person and millions online through his exploration of the American founding. For all of these reasons, it is my honor as president of Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge, on behalf of our board of directors, to confer the 2020 Distinguished Citizen Award on Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College. Dr. Arnn, thank you for accepting this.
Well, thank you. I've admired the Freedom's Foundation since the Paleolithic age. I sometime in the 1980s, it came to my notice, and my first reaction was, what a great thing that is. And so I'm proud to have this, and I'm proud to meet you, and I'm proud that your work still continues so well.
Well, thank you. Dr. Arnn, I have a question for you. Suppose the electorate had been wise enough to receive your candidacy for the U.S. House of Representatives with the gratitude it merited. Could you have accomplished in politics what you have accomplished on behalf of the founding ideals as an educator? You
know, I talked to the guy who beat me not long ago, and we concluded that it worked out well for both of us. You know, I did that because I believed in it and believed in the country and want to serve it however, and will serve it anytime I get a chance. I learned a lot from that. One of my favorite things to say is you learn as much in a few months as you learn going to graduate school, and it cost about the same amount. Yeah, it was, and you know, what would you do? Today, you know, I know a lot more about it now than I knew back then. There are 435 members of the House of Representatives, and the average one is not terribly significant. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of significant ones. And it has to do with the ones who are purposeful
and can articulate what they're about and stick to it. So I probably would have been one of those and would have got some things done.
President Arnn, the founders held certain truths to be not just discernible through careful study, not just reachable by the wise, but self-evident. You mentioned that the contrary argument, that men aren't created equal, that they're not endowed with certain inalienable rights, is ultimately incoherent. And yet you mentioned that it's dangerous as well. Why does an incoherent argument have such appeal or gain such traction in today's culture?
Yeah, there's a few reasons for that, I'd say. We live in the scientific age, and that leads us to think that any problem can be solved. And so the Declaration of Independence states a principle that is perfect. Human affairs are never perfect. You know, Lincoln says that beautiful thing about the Declaration, the standard maximum for a free society, and then I'll paraphrase, always to be sought, always to be striven for, always to be struggled after, never to be wholly attained. Because we're people, right? And things go wrong, and that maxim is what we should go toward. Well, it isn't perfect in America. It's the best, but it isn't perfect. And so these people would tear it all down. And the incoherent part of it, right? I mean, that's just imprudent, right? To take this piece of logic. It's like a geometric proof. It's so clear. Madison says that the same thing that makes it necessary for us to have government is also the thing that makes it necessary for government to be limited. Because we people commit evils, and the people in the government are people too, right?
If all men were angels,
that's
he
right.
asked.
That's it. One of the prettiest things written by anybody ever in politics. So the point is, we're going to discard that now, and we're going to give limitless power to Lord knows who, including mobs in the street. I mean, there's a book out. It's tops in Amazon, I read. I can't imagine many people are actually reading the book. But it's a defense of looting as a redistribution of wealth. And if the looters, because apparently they do this, they steal stuff, but also sometimes they throw it out in the street. That's a form of sharing.
Have there been times in American history when the founders' ideal has been equally jeopardized by contrary views?
Yeah, twice, I think. The turning points in American history, the big ones, are three. The Revolution, which, almost didn't work and did not command universal support, right? There's a lot of American families that are Canadians now since the Revolution because they didn't win and they left, right? So that was, and what was that division about? Well, here's a microcosm, perfect. The Declaration of Independence says what it says. The king answered it. And so you can read his answer. His answer is a speech from the throne in the summer of 1776. And what he says is, I was born to be your ruler, and I am required to do that, and you are required to obey. I am required to treat my people well. But whether either one of us likes it, they're my people. See? Now, you can't get farther apart from that. And the second time is in the Civil War, right? And it's not, in the American founding, almost no one defended slavery as a good thing. And they did quickly, quickly means within a generation, abolish it in 60% of the Union. But then that improvement was arrested. What arrested it? The growth of a doctrine of evolution, effectively, German historicism, which John C. Calhoun was heavily influenced by, for example. And they got the idea that the slaves had evolved into a place where they should be slaves. It's a good, a positive good, they would say, right? And that's what caused the Civil War. And that means that, again, you've got two direct opposite conceptions. And in the end, you know, Lincoln says of that, to find a man that's half slave and half free is like finding a man who's neither a living nor a dead man. So it can't be compromised, right? And these claims that are being made in American politics can't be compromised. And so this, I think, is the third time that this has happened. The American people, thank God for it, have to choose, and they have a right to choose, and they're getting a chance to choose.
About that choice, are you optimistic, pessimistic, or is there a realistic intermediate position?
Well, yeah, so first of all, and see, I'm not just talking about the next election. I have my opinions about that, but I'm a student of Winston Churchill. Pessimism is a crime. You mustn't do that, right? You fight better if you think you're going to win. And so I do believe. Here's a way to think about it. At the beginning of the American Revolution, and at the beginning of the Civil War, and at the beginning of the Second World War, despotism looked simply overwhelming. You know, in 1860, the capital city was surrounded, and Lincoln had never commanded any significant body of troops. I think maybe 8 men in a short military service. So he issued a call for troops to defend the Union. How do you know anybody'd come? And he wondered, right? So that was a desperate situation. In 1940, 1939 and 40, the Germans were just simply overwhelming, right? But and that means that when you're fighting a despotism, you always know how many they are. Whereas if a free people need to rally, you only find out later. And and what happened? I mean, in the story of Winston Churchill in 1940. I'm married to an English woman, and her father was a camp commander of a Japanese POW camp in World War II. Great man, a lawyer. Her mother was a plotter for the Royal Air Force. They remember those days as the greatest thing they ever saw. You see, and they were in holy terror of imminent defeat. But Lord, were they not heroic people. I think Winston Churchill turned modern Great Britain into Sparta for about 2 years.
Quite an achievement.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And he, something about him, he thought they would do that. He believed in them, right? And see, it follows, right? If you think people have a right to govern themselves, then you'd be a fool not to believe in their capacity to do it.
Before we leave, this is your opportunity to speak to an audience that, if not perhaps as large as Hillsdale's collection of friends and benefactors, is certainly committed. And what would you like them to know about you, about Hillsdale, and about your vision for where we as a republic go from here?
Okay. Well, I would say 2 things to your friends who are watching this and mine. The first is thank you for supporting the Freedoms Foundation. That thing is steady and old and has just the right idea. The second thing is keep your chin up. The principles of freedom and its practices are beautiful, and beautiful things can never be wholly effaced. And the future of Hillsdale College is just like its past. We're going to remember that.
Dr. Arnn, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Please join me once more in recognizing Dr. Larry Arnn. Thank you, Dr. Arnn. I don't want to forget our last group of Blue sponsors: ASL Transportation, Reagan Management Services, Russell Stokes, Mayor of Cherokee Village, Arkansas, and your part-time controller. Thank you each and every one for your amazing support. We are winding down the night, but there is still some time to help win a bid or to make a donation. If there are any NASCAR fans out there, we have several items that might be of interest to you in the auction, including tickets to Dover Speedway and some items from Team Penske. Next, we're going to hear from another one of my colleagues on the board, Sally Brinton. Sally.
Hello, my name is Sally Brinton. I am so happy to be able to share with you why I love Freedom's Foundation. My relationship with Freedom's Foundation goes back 25 years when our second oldest child found out about the Spirit of America Youth Leadership Conference in his high school counselor's office. He applied, was chosen, attended the conference, and subsequently 5 more of our children have attended. Each of our children has returned back from the conferences excited about the grand experience of visiting Valley Forge, seeing the Medal of Honor Grove, learning from other youth from around the nation, and viewing the inspiring statue of George Washington kneeling beside his horse in prayer. We are so grateful for what this organization does for youth, teachers, and people from all walks of life. Our oldest grandchild just recently attended the conference, and it is our hope that each of our other 28 grandchildren will qualify to have this wonderful opportunity. As a former president of the Utah chapter of Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge and a current national board member, I am passionate about the mission of Freedom's Foundation. Freedom's Foundation teaches about our country's noble and great history. Students come to the campus and are taught true principles about our country's founding, the courage of George Washington and his young soldiers and other valiant patriots, and the divinely inspired Declaration of Independence and Constitution. Today, more than ever before, the mission of Freedom's Foundation is vital in teaching the wonderful and inspiring truth about our country's founding. Rather than the revisionist history that is being taught in some academia, Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge instills patriotism and appreciation for the sacrifices that were made to establish the greatest country in the world. I hope you will join me in supporting this marvelous organization with a generous donation. By doing so, you will be helping the future leaders of our country.
Thank you, Sally. I can't say it any better than you can. If you can help, now's the time. There are multitudes of ways to help Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge. The auction will continue until 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time, so you have about 20 more minutes to continue bidding. I want to highlight 2 last fairly unique items that are up for bid. One is the chance to meet Thomas Jefferson. Yes, you heard that right. Those who have been to a student program at Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge know Steve Edenbow, the actor-historian from American Historical Theater, who portrays our 3rd president for us. This is your chance for a 90-minute encounter with the author of the Declaration of Independence. You can donate his performance to your school, whether you're a teacher or a parent, or meet him for dinner at City Tavern here in Philly. And if you're willing to pay travel costs, he'll probably agree to meet you just about anywhere. Second is the American Philosophical Society's Treasure Tour in honor of APS member Roger Smith and donated by APS librarian Patrick Sparrow and his team. This is an opportunity to see some of the unique treasures APS holds, including an original handwritten declaration, letters from George Washington, Ben Franklin's own copy of the Constitution with his handwritten marginalia, and Charles Wilson Peel's portrait of George Washington done here in Valley Forge during the winter encampment. Go check out both of these auction items now. There are so many people who made tonight possible. Thank you to all of our sponsors, starting with our diamond presenting sponsor, H.D. Smith Foundation. Thank you to Frank Giordano, Roger Smith, and Larry Arnn for leadership and example and for accepting the Distinguished Citizen Award. Thank you to the staff at Hillsdale College who helped with the video of the award presentation, and especially Madison Moore in the Office of the President who helped pull everything together. Thank you to all of the Freedoms Foundation at Valley Forge staff, especially the development team, for all the work postponing, rescheduling, and creating a virtual program for this evening. And thank you to my fellow board members who contributed in different ways, including as sponsors, as participants, and contributors in tonight's program. Thank you all who donated to the auction and who gave generously, making tonight's program possible. And hurry, there are only a few items left to bid on. Finally, I want to thank the Philly Pops, not only for allowing us to honor them tonight, but for providing such wonderful music for our virtual gala. I especially want to thank Pop COO Karen Corbin and her team for all the help and support. Tonight we close, as we always do, with God Bless America, tonight performed by the inimitable Philly Pops under the direction of David Charles Abel. Thank you and good night.